This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Jackie O and you're listening to Militantly Mixed.
Yo, this is Rashani from the Single Simulcast. And when I'm not making you laugh or making up parody songs, I'm kicking back, listening to Militantly Mixed.
Hey y'all, welcome to Militantly Mixed, the podcast about race and identity from the mixed race perspective. I am your host, Charmaine, aka Mixed Girl Maine, the busiest mixed race, bisexual, polyamorous, atheist, comic book nerd, cat mom podcaster in this podcasting game. I am so glad to be back off of my mental health hiatus and the first episode of 2020. This is episode 76, and I do not feel like myself if I am not podcasting. Let me tell you, as important as it is for me to take these breaks, because mental health is important, I don't pay the right attention to my mental health. I've been doing really well in 2019 in doing that, but it's still very difficult for me. I tend to bottle and bottle and bottle until it explodes. And so I've built in this schedule of 3 months on and 1 month off to force myself to let it out and decompress. Because emotionally speaking, doing Militantly Mixed is actually pretty heavy. There's times we talk about a lot of trauma and family stuff and racism and cultural things, and it builds up inside. And so programming this schedule so that I take a break every 4 months is really important. That being said, I hate it because I miss talking to mixed people and I miss doing this show. Militantly Mixed is everything to me, and if it was the only thing I could do, I would totally do it, but I can't live like that. So I took the break and I'm back and I'm excited. But let's get back to what we're doing here. This is episode 76. My guest this week is the Rach, aka Rachel Roe. She is a comedian and a writer and someone that I met when I was on TV. She and I were both on a panel along with Cheryl Bedford from the Women of Color United production group on the Mike and Donnie show. We were guests to speak on the topic of colorism. It was a really interesting night. If you got to catch the video, it was online for a period of time. I don't know if it still is, but we do talk about it a little bit in this interview. A couple things I do want to point out. When we spoke, Rach and I, the internet dropped out like 5 or 6 times. And towards the end of our conversation, it became more frequently, like every 3 to 5 minutes. So it got really frustrating. And so I've cut out as much of it as I can, or in the whole section that it got really frustrating. So you're not going to get a full picture of the whole interview, but you're still going to get a lot of information. There's also a section from like the 26-minute to the 32-minute mark in which my audio completely drops out. It's not recoverable. But I left it in because what she's saying is so important. And actually, when I do address her, she restated what I said, not knowing my audio wasn't being recorded. So it still actually flows and makes sense. It just sounds like I'm not even going, or, oh, I got you. You know, no filler words are even coming out of me. It's just dead silence from me for that period of time. So it's a little bit awkward. Like I said, I'm not going to give you the whole interview because there was so many places in which the internet dropped out, and we wouldn't come back. It would take us a minute to kind of get back into, what was the last thing you remember saying? I think you said this, blah, blah, blah. So there might be some duplicate areas because we were kind of catching each other back up to try to get there, or it may seem like we just abruptly changed topics, and that's what happened. We just had these big chunks in our conversation because of the internet that day. It was not our friend. All right, so I'm looking forward to sharing this interview with you, and please also follow Rach on social media. I will put that in the show notes, and she also mentions it at the end of the episode because she's dope and she does dope shit, and I want you all to follow her. Okay. If you haven't been following me on social media or you haven't heard the last episode, you may not be aware that now Militantly Mixed has enamel pins. And I'm so excited about these damn pins, y'all. You don't understand. My personal Instagram, if you do follow that, which some of you do, you are very well aware of my obsession with enamel pins. They're all over my backpack and I'm always looking for new ones. And I finally have Militantly Mixed logo on an enamel pin. They are for sale right now on Etsy.com. There'll be a link to the store in the show notes, but if you just go to Etsy.com and then search for Militantly Mixed, the store will pop up. And on that store, you can get the mini buttons, which are the 1-inch buttons, the 3-inch vinyl stickers, or the enamel pins at $12 right now. They were $10 for the pre-order in December, but now they're physically here on site. So when you order them, they ship out the next day, and they're at $12 now. We had a pretty good rush during the pre-order. We sold about 22 or 24 of them, and another sale just went out today. So we're doing pretty good. If you would like to pick up one, please go to the Etsy store, but then also take photos and tag me in them on Instagram at Militantly Mixed, or hashtag it be your mixed ass self, so I get a chance to see them. I have seen a couple of y'all have done that so far, and I do appreciate it. And it's just like, I'm so excited to think about where the world these pins are going to be noticed and walking around on your jackets and your bags and everything like that. So thank you to the folks who have purchased them so far. So that's just another area in which I'm trying to raise funds for the show. As for the Patreon sponsorship, we did hit $311 a month recently, and I'm going to be doing some shout outs next week for all of the folks that are sponsoring the show right now. The goal for 2019 was to hit $500 a month. We didn't quite get there, but it is still the goal, so I'm going to still be pushing for that. And as soon as we hit that 500, that'll be where I can finally get the help that I need to edit these shows and stuff like that, because it's starting to get a little bit difficult to produce all 4 shows and edit all 4 shows and maintain my full-time job and my part-time job. Life is a little bit difficult, as I've been telling you guys. And I have a lot more responsibility to try to keep above water. So to keep this going and afloat, I do need your support, and your support has kept me going the last couple months. So I appreciate y'all so much. You don't understand how meaningful it is to me that I have the support that I do doing this show. And all that support is just speaking to this show growing. As I mentioned on the last episode, we hit 15,000 downloads of all time, which is a pretty big deal for such a small, independently produced niche podcast. I feel like I'm going to be a little bit of a mess for the next couple of weeks while I try to get back into the flow of things. Since you last heard from me on a regular basis, like I said, I've added a part-time job. I've reduced a podcast. I'm not going to be doing By Furious for a couple of months unless I can, afford the support to do the editing and producing. And my personal life, my husband and I are kind of underwater financially. So, working hard to try to dig us out of it. And the show might take some scheduling hits because of that, but I'll do my best to stay on track. And also want to offer up the opportunity for pitches for episodes or guest episodes or things like that. If you would like to be more involved in Militantly Mixed, please reach out to me. Email me at charmaine@militantlymixed.com. It's S as in Sam, HAR, M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, E, at militantlymixed.com. And let me know what level of participation you want to be in. Right now, we do have a fan moderator. So listener Jonathan Davis is now moderating our Facebook group and private page. So if you want to give him a shout out, jump on over to Facebook and let him know that you appreciate that he's going to be pitching in on providing topics and engaging conversation on these pages, and hopefully growing our audience that way. Another way that you can support the show is sharing episodes with people that you find meaningful and explaining to them why those episodes are meaningful. And of course, following us on social media. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook are all at Militantly Mixed. I don't want to drag on too long like I normally do. I'm going to actively try in 2020 to keep my intros a little bit shorter. Can't guarantee I'm going to be successful at that at all, but I think that's pretty good. We talked about the enamel pins. We talked about Patreon. We talked about Rach and the internet issues that we had. I think that's good. If you haven't already reached out to me, but you've been considering reaching out to me to be a guest, please do, because I am trying to book up for my January and February dates still. And the show doesn't exist without you, so I need you to let me know you want to come on. All right, I think that's pretty good. Without further ado, please help me welcome the Rach to the Militantly Mixed family. did 5 years in Massachusetts, and we're about to hit 5
What
years.
part of Mass were you in?
Bridgewater, like short of Boston.
Okay.
AKA the fucking most racist place in the world. For any of my listeners that are from Boston, I'm not going to apologize because you fucking know you segregate your white people. So if you segregate your white people, you for sure don't have room for us. But yeah, it'll be.
That's what people need to understand. And it's probably some of my most joyous shit is that every culture segregates their shit. Every fucking race of people has a hierarchy of like the goods and the bads. And a lot of it's based on tone and hue, but everybody does it.
Yeah, there's like, no joke, I actually heard it described this way about how Boston is segmented. There's regular white people, which I think means people who descend from like Anglo cultures.
Right.
There are the Irish, which are the black people of the white people. And then there's the Italians, which are like the cousins of white people, but they're white, like they're European, they're white. They're not Latin, they're not brown. Like they might be a little bit mixed, but they're essentially white. But so yeah, it's Italians, Irish, the black people of the white people, and regular white people, meaning Anglo. Which Irish are Anglo, but like for some reason the Irish are the lesser of all Anglo whites. So
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
It's not okay.
Are they?
Not okay. They're not,
Italians
but that's how they're treated.
So close to Africa. Our melanated friends.
Who are?
The Italians. Everything's African. I don't have time for this shit. I'm sorry. It's like, even when I be sitting here trying to dissect that shit, I'd be like, human race, man. I really, like, I get over it, actually, at some point in time.
Oh, you're a human racer?
For the most part, I really am. I'm like, okay, like, at the end of the day, I know when I'm, we all bleed, we all gonna die. This is just, like, petty shit. This is just, like, these are just the rules of the game.
It's arbitrary shit that we decided. And once, like, once people get over the whole idea that mixed people are going to save humanity from racism, which is not how we should not be used, don't put that burden on us. When they get past that, they'll find a different thing. It'll be like
now
too tall, too short.
Of either, like, I think that's crazy because either culture has different baggage. And unless you deal with either culture's baggage ultimately, then nothing's really alleviated.
Yeah, we'll find other reasons. Like, I honestly think that the only thing that would really unite the human race as human race is if we were attacked by aliens, like in a domination situation.
I don't want that to happen, but it could.
Like that would be the thing. But even then, we would still be like, it would still start out hella racist. It would still be like Operation Get Behind Darky and
like
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like who? Do you know, one time I was in a production office and like my higher ups, they're these two ladies. They were saying that on a train that the first person that they look for when they sit on a train is who could protect them.
That's asking a lot of a stranger.
She's like, yeah, I just think of like in a crazy scenario, like what could happen, and I'm like, that's who she's like, Inslee, I think of Ally. I'm like, what? And I'm like, I don't think I think that way.
You are putting an expectation on a stranger.
I know how fucked up I am emotionally. I think the first thing I think of is like, will anybody sit with me? Like, am I not good enough to like sit with anybody? Like,
wow.
Oh my gosh, is that a homeless person? Why do they always think we're best friends? Like,
oh no. Oh yeah.
Girl, the other day, straight up, a girl tried to kiss me. Straight up, she went in for a hug, and I'm not like mad about hugs. I was getting off the train. I didn't know she was like gonna whisper. I didn't know. Like I'm pretty innocently stupid with like my space. Sometimes I'm like, what are you going to do? And she like went in for a hug or whatever. I thought she was just getting off the train, and she was like, can I kiss you? And I said, no. Have a good day though. She's like, why? No. Oh
God, that's my nightmare. You don't understand. I come from two very untouchy cultures, the Brits and the Japanese. But the flip side of it is Black American folks can be very touchy. So I have to deal with touchiness in a very strange way. That would be my nightmare. I could not. No, I couldn't.
Yeah. It's funny. Like people everybody wants to be touched, but it's like when. you know?
It's a win thing for me.
Those cultures, you know?
It is. Like when someone comes at me with like, I'm a hugger, I'm like, so what?
Okay,
you do not have
bitch.
consent to touch my body.
Right.
Like it's a whole ass thing. It is easier. This is a confession. My audience, I don't think, has heard me say this. It is easier for me to hug Black people. It is really hard for me to hug white people. And it is even harder to hug Japanese people because they don't want to be hugged either.
Never admitted before in my life, it is easier for me to make eye contact with everybody on the street except for Black males.
Really?
For the most part. I mean, I'll do it. Or just... It's harder for me. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a daddy's issue thing, but I could stare a white man down. And I think part of me is like really doing it off some like, and nigga. I don't know if I don't do it off some subconscious like, my king, okay, I look away. You know, like, I don't know if it's like a subconscious docile move or if it's just like, I don't know.
That's a good segue because we didn't stop and introduce you yet. So that's a good way to get into that because we just started talking. First of all, 8 minutes into our recording, today's guest, Happy New Year, everybody. We're back. Mental Mixed. We are back, and this is our first guest of 2020. This is the Rach, who I got to meet. It's one of the another thing that's special about you, Rach, is that you are one of the few people I have met in Meet Space who is coming on the show. Because I usually I only meet people over cyberspace, over online. Meet Space, as in MEAT, as in meet. We're made of meat.
I love that.
Rachel and I were both guests on the Mike and Donnie show on Fox Soul, which is the same day I found out that Fox had a Black channel.
Right.
The whole studio was purple, which I loved because
that's Black. This is for niggas, you see. This programming here.
I was so happy. First of all, when we got invited to this thing to talk about colorism on the Mike and Donnie show, no one told me the Mike and Donnie show. I thought I was going on some YouTube website. Like, I didn't know what the fuck this was.
Me too. They were like, it's just a digital. I was like, okay.
Yes, that's what I thought. So I roll up and I see Fox Soul, and I was like, what the fuck is Fox Soul? Get parked and everything like that. Found out we had a Black channel. Did not know we had a Black channel. And
let's watch Bombshell. Anyways, I'm stressed. I don't know what I did. I don't know what I did. No, I'm just like, they were wonderful.
It was really nice. Yes, it was really nice. We talked about something that's very delicate for Black people to talk about, colorism. It's hard for people on all shades and tones to talk about this. And I was sort of the representative of mixed Black, and I felt like for a period of time I was supposed to be the peacekeeper because there was a light-skinned man who was very sensitive about colorism and a dark-skinned woman who was trying to explain it to him and he was not receiving it. So we had that experience. We were both guests on this show, and as we got to chatting, you shared with me that you have a very unique mixed experience in that you are two kinds of Black.
Super Black. So
let's get into it.
I feel like I'm like 3 types of Black for real.
Okay, well, yeah, because you also are here in the States.
Yeah,
so let's get into it.
I'm American born, okay?
American born.
I'm a first generation American. I was raised in the North Shore, Chicago. I was born and raised in the North Shore, Chicago, Evanston, Illinois, and Rogers Park, all that. Mm-hmm. And my mother is Jamaican, right? So she was born in Jamaica and she immigrated to England actually first when she was 17. And then my father is Nigerian. So I'm mixed and then I am just Black. You know what I'm saying? Those are 2 different types of Black. They're actually on 2 different
cultures,
2 different sides of the world.
They have beef sometimes.
Oh man, beef and they cook it, eh? Yeah. But they do, and I can say that because my parents were married and then they were divorced, and quite frankly, I'm the third born, right? I'm the youngest. Okay. There's a 10 and 12-year gap from my brother and sister. For me, that was always really difficult for me to deal with because I felt like an oops child. I felt like a mistake. I felt like an afterthought. And 17-year-olds are not trying to hang out with 7-year-olds. You know what I'm saying? So that created a real disconnect between my siblings and I. And then my parents are kind of older because they had kids when they should have had kids. And then my mother had me when she was like 38, 39. And that now is like a cute thing to do. And like people are like,
but
I'm
50. It wasn't like 20 years ago.
You don't understand what that really means. And I want to break that down for a lot of the people who think that shit's cute. Unless you plan on being physical, you know what I'm saying? And with the way that our monetary system set up, the way that we don't really know about like Social Security and shit like that, unless you want to be physical with your children, in tune with all their shit, and working all the time to provide for that child, to make sure that they're up to date with all the new technological advances that I'm sure we're going to run into, even more than the fucking 90s to the 2000s, because that was a huge turning point in just industrialization and tech, in a tech boom. But if you really want to do that, you really can't wait to have kids late in life.
Yeah.
You really can't, because
you're kind of close to retirement age as the time that you're coming up.
And
like
there's that. My mother would still, if my mother is like still working technically, you know what I'm saying? My mom's, she's retiring now. I am well into my 20s. That is crazy. That's crazy. So I'm just saying that it's difficult, for people to balance that lifestyle. And I appreciate every bit. And my mom spent some time, parenting me. I think ultimately she was always kind of a single parent. My parents got divorced when I was 10, but, they, essentially were there for all of my brother and sisters, life, in that frame. And, so there's certain things that I did and didn't experience culturally. I grew up being very balanced in both cultures initially, probably up until 10 or so. And so
you have more of a cultural experience of a Black American kid, you think, than
a Caribbean child raised in Black America.
Got it.
I mean, actually probably more Black American with Caribbean understandings and like some African understandings. And that's also just because of what I took my after experience to be. So let me break this down in this sense, right? And even probably more to that, more of a white male. I don't even fucking know, my G. It's kind of like the way I was raised. I'm raised in the North Shore of Chicago. You can hear the tone of my voice. And you can assume that if you knew what type of judgmental society we used to live in, how marginalized my experience was. A lot of foreigners understand that oftentimes you're not taught the language or the dialect of your culture because they want you to be successful in a different type of way.
They want us to assimilate.
Yeah. So that's kind of the approach that happened. I was raised by television. Like me and TV, cable just came out recently, around, I was, it was popping, like BT, get to know me. And like, so I was raised through social constructs, and some of those things I knew to be true. And some of those things I was like, this is a farce. And so I think that's why I work in the television and film industry now, but more to the experience of my parents. I think that, they really tried to make me as American, quote unquote, as I could. And American does not mean Black American.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yes, I won countless African American Achievement Awards every February.
How do you feel about that? Can we let's get to that? And if you keep talking, but we'll get back to that because I want to talk about this issue.
I feel fine about it because I'm African and I'm American.
Right.
But the way that they meant it was as a cloak for saying Black.
For Black, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? As a cloak for saying nigger or Negro. That's so, then it's different. But also it was different because outside of that, I'm raised by my mother. My mother's tit. And so contingent upon culture, right? The culture will tell you if your parent is this, then you're this. If your parent is that, then you're that. I've been told by people in Jamaican cultures, if your mother's Jamaican, then you're Jamaican. And I've been told by people in Nigerian cultures, if your father's Nigerian, then you're Nigerian.
I love that. I love that you come from that situation.
And this is like from a child up. So I'm like, okay, so I'm both, right? So when I'm a kid, I'm going to Nigerian parties. I'm eating all the jollof rice, son, all the moi moi, all the fufu. I love Nigerian food. My dad cooked, and he cooked traditional food, and then he was breakfast master, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And my mom, could make everything traditionally from the Caribbean side, and then she would do the Martha Stewart, rotisserie, bop bop bop. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So she could do that shit too, but it was also she's a nurse, she works nights, and she made no qualms in letting me know that part of that was racism. Part of that was sexism. You know what I'm saying? That she had to work the hour that she did, and she couldn't be here when I got, she was there when I got home, but then she had to go to sleep or something you know what I'm saying? That was always known to me. And she worked in an environment where there was racism and colorism and all that shit, because nurses are comprised of predominantly 3 different cultures. And that being Black, but Caribbean specifically. Specifically, yeah. And then so Haitian, Trini, just anybody from the Caribbean, because that's what the funnel was at a certain period of time for that Europe and the US were offering degrees in. And then this is during the 60s and 70s and stuff like that. And then even into the 80s. But anyways, and then the other thing is Filipino, in terms of an Asian background. And then in terms of white people, there are a lot of especially in Chicago, it's a highly Jewish demographic, Polish Jewish, whatever, just Jewish women. And then, and there are various hierarchies and different experiences in which she dealt with. And so I always knew that she was tired. She was dealing with certain stressors, certain pressures, but because both of these cultures, regardless, there's a certain level of catering and adoration to the male. I don't think those things were as acknowledged. You know what I'm saying? And so my father also worked. He was a shoe salesman and he sold cars for Toyota, but he at some point stopped because a few people don't understand that the car business is kind of hella racist as well. Yeah. And so he was told when he was selling to essentially charge Black women $500 more than the markup price. So my mom would get mad at him and be like, yo, you're not making any money. And then I think there came to a moment where he had to explain they probably brought him in to be this nigga. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, right. Black bitches. You know what I'm saying? And then he was getting the Black. He was like, but you gotta make it cost. And then it's like, what? What do you want me to do? so that wasn't a thing. But then he became he went back to selling shoes, and he did that, until he passed. And I've seen my dad in super subservient positions to then also be able to be like, yeah, we're royalty though. Like, like I'm a prince, blah, 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 blah. Like to have that conversation as well. And so I think that was always a really interesting juxtaposition. So the idea, and I say that to say that I think the idea of what it meant to be Black for me was always something that was beautiful. Ultimately. So I used to get mad at my mom or my dad when they would say stuff like that. That's some blah, blah, like, hey, my mom would say stuff like that were anti-African or anti-Nigerian specifically. And, like also they're getting a divorce, and guys, it's a normal one. So my dad wasn't shit. And so it's okay, whatever, I don't know. I feel like
a long time of being in different cultures and together and just being like, this doesn't work.
Codependent too. I think in that generation, a lot of people got together at young ages. I think now, like my mom would be married right now and she would have 2 children right now, or at least a child. And I think that that's crazy. Because when I think about my life and think 42. About like how developed my I'm 20 and I'm like, I'm not even ready for that.
Not even close. Not even close.
I have so much debt. Fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying?
So, but I would love it. If you would have asked me as a child, do I ever think I would have been unmarried by now? Oh no, I would have never thought about it. But what I think
also too, because of the cultures that you come from, both have a perceived married young.
And like traditional thing. And like this idea, like an idea of virginity and virtuosity and things of that. Right. And so certain ideals I definitely did hold on to, and certain ideals I was like, blah. So like I was raised Episcopal. I would, out of most things, I'd consider myself Christian, but I've experimented with with the Baha'i faith and the Muslim faith a bit, and Judaism, because I was raised in a very Jewish environment. And it's like, Dad, like everybody needs a menorah. But I used to do a lot of things that were just ultimately pro-Black.
Right.
And so I didn't like that my mom would make judgments about Nigerians or Africans. And I didn't like that my dad would make judgments about Jamaicans and like Caribbean people, but they were doing it fairly evenly. You know what I'm saying?
That's so funny. How did they even get together? Like I am so curious about relationships that are like this, where you can hear them talk bad about the other cultures.
I want to script it, and I'm looking to write a lot more this year, so hopefully I can give that to you. But essentially, it was that idea of how people met back in the day. Like, I have a friend. I have friends. They were matched up and they were married, and then they got divorced a year later. I mean, like, you should have listened to them, but it's whatever, like, they were friends. I guess nurses and shoe salesmen were like doing things back.
That's the circle. Like, there's a whole bunch of nurse and shoe salesmen couples.
Like, they had cars. Like, cool. Yeah, even if I'm walking, I'm still driving. Like, I don't understand. Funny. But so yeah, and my mom was very Christian, super devout Christian. My dad was like fake Christian. He told her that he was Christian just so that he like wouldn't have to be Muslim. Pray 5 times a day. But then
Jesus is dope. I love him.
Yeah, he's fun. Only rugs, area rugs. But then I had uncles that were devoutly Muslim, and like one of my uncles used to come over all the time and like if he was there for a long period of time, I at least got to see him pray like twice. You know what I'm saying? And take that time out and like know not to disturb him and like understand what that meditation was. And it was very beautiful. And I was thankful for that. And but I also came from a person who like he would acknowledge the fact that he was like not progressive. Like he had that understanding about himself. And it was kind of sad, but my mother felt that way as well in a different way. That I think is harmful for both genders. And I think I'm kind of just understanding that in a little bit right now too. So he was a really dope artist, low key. Like when I was a kid, my dad, he was like able to like draw really well. Like he would be like, oh, here's an airplane. And he'd be like, just do it like this. And I'd be like, no, I can't. Like, but anyways, eventually I got like halfway decent. My brother and sister are definitely mad dope. I think ultimately though, my parents weren't, because they were first generation Americans. And I think a lot of what they decided to do in life was just about practicality. Let's stay married for the kids and for taxes and for, it's easier to pay this mortgage like at some point in time, I think a lot of people are they do it for, this is what's supposed to happen. Yeah, it's expensive for some people. If, somebody's trying not to like make it a no contest situation, it's draining. Your taxes change. You have to change your social sometimes. It's just, it's a lot. So ultimately, when I was younger, I was exposed to more Nigerian culture. And as I got older, I was definitely more Caribbean and Jamaican influence because that's who took over the raising of me. And that, for me, made me, I think I missed out on a lot of both cultures. Like, they're both British rule. So they both have this idea of excellence and like being the best and the greatest. And, but it wasn't probably until I was in an Afro-American studies class in high school or college where I really had to sit there and contemplate, like, for those people to get together, those cultures specifically, there's just a lot of, as much as you want to be great, you have to be innovative. And you have to have a unique amount of confidence. You have to have the type of confidence in which your country boasts regularly. And I don't think they had that. I feel like they only had that during the Olympics. You know what I'm saying? But when it came to like me as a kid, I dealt with a lot of emotional abuse, physical abuse. I'd be like, not so much. But definitely emotional abuse where it was, I was a mouthy kid for sure. Very witty. But for me, I think I would have looked at that child like, you're smart. Like, you got to look at that kid and be like, wow, like there's a lot that's working in your mind for you to be able to call out this situation or observe something in the way that you do. And I have to nourish that. And so when I was doing well in school and certain things were happening, because both of those cultures expect excellence, there wasn't fanfare. And that's cool, but it also right. Being rewarded. not being rewarded for shit. I mean, like, we're talking about like very, like, you know, for me to then look at my other counterparts and being like, oh, you're getting new blah, 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 and you're getting this, that, and third. And the thing was funny though. So if you were full something though, like if their parents were both Jamaican, there would be a certain level of like, no, you can't do this, but like, we're gonna, I mean, that's also because of the type of person I was. I was like androgynous as well. Or I am androgynous. And as much as I probably wanted to get my hair done, I still wanted to play in the mud, you know? So like if I would say if you were like the type of girl that both cultures would expect me to be, which is like docile and or like, you know, well educated or well learned, but like also obedient, you know, and like didn't talk back. And like, even I did, you know, I thought, and I as I'm talking about this, I feel a way, I think, because I still feel bad about it, but I don't. And that's what I was like trying to make them understand, so that there should be less shame associated with whatever our stories were. I think my mother grew up in an environment where people called people by their like complexion and like had nicknames for them that were very denoting of their aesthetic, and like it was normal. Like brown skinned girl, you know, red, you know, yellow man, you know, like, and you'd be like, that's not, or like if you were a fat girl, like, you know, there'd be like a little, you know, thing for that. And so when I was a kid, I remember specifically growing up and being like, they're making fun of me, Mom. Like, that's what's happening on the buses. This is what's happening, being called dark as shit. And this is black as coal and all this. And she was just like, God made dirt doesn't hurt, sticks and stones. She just gave me some, just told them to shut up. Like, she was just like, I don't get it. You know, she just didn't get it. She wasn't
as bothered by you being called out in this colorism type of way.
Yeah, because it wasn't a thing for her. She came from a black island that was happy that they were black for the most part, but they weren't. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
It was just differently cloaked. So like, what is name calling? Do you see what I'm saying?
I see.
So a kid to a person who grew up in poverty. Like, girl, like, you're dark. They're calling you. Like, I don't know if that was her full.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, is that no matter what, we would find something. If we're not allowed to hate on this issue anymore, we find something else. If we're both poor.
Yeah, like, it's going to be something. Like, it's whatever and with that, she didn't, I think with my grandmother even as well, there was an idea that they weren't beautiful women. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's partially also my push to being within with being talent, but also educated talent and like conscious talent in this industry, because I so my you know, my grandmother's passed as well, but I so much want them to see somebody who looks like me and who looks like them be okay and like have whatever nuance I have, but be loved. Because I feel like that's what drives you to relationships and situationships that don't necessarily love you in return. And, you know, just conversely to my father, for him to be a person who didn't have enough belief in himself to do whatever he really wanted to do. But know that, you know, like most niggas know, and it's horrible. I said I wasn't going to say niggas in 2020. God. Like most people know, it's so hard. It's hard though. It's because I'm just doing an experiment. You know, I didn't use the N-word until I got to college, really, in like my sophomore year of college.
Oh, really? I grew up using it, like, because I grew up in Black American hood. Like, I grew up using it because I am mixed, though. I am careful. Not careful. That's the wrong choice of word.
Yeah, no. But you think about it.
You know, like, I have to pause for a second because I'm like, the people I grew up around knew me as Black and accepted me as Black. Right. And if you see my face, you accept me as Black. Or in most cases, I've never really had Black people tell me they didn't think I was Black, when they looked at me. And so usually it's fine. But like that first 15 seconds that you meet someone, you're not going to roll up on someone and be like brand new and be like, what's up, nigga? That's not going to be a thing. Yeah.
But it's funny though, here in New York and in various other areas where so much of our culture has been popularized, people really do say nigga every day. And here in New York, I literally couldn't stop anybody. I remember walking down the street and hearing that shit and being like, what? And then being like, it's a 16-year-old. What are you about to do? Pop him in the mouth right now?
The way I was growing up is I didn't even associate nigga with the N-word because I do view them as two separate words. And because the Black kid said it, the Mexican kid said it, the Asian kid said it, we were all from the same neighborhood. So to me, it was a hood word. And then I moved as a teenager, a late teenager, like sophomore year, I moved to a white suburb. And it was kind of my first experience around white people, like a lot of white people. And that's when I realized, oh, no, this is specific to us. And I didn't know that because I grew up in a place where everybody was like, and so then, you pop up around then, you're like, ooh, it sounds terrible coming from white people, that kind of thing happens.
I do feel something.
Yeah. And so like now, like I only take the pause because, and I think I said this when we were on the show together too, and I was telling this to Donnie, I was like, we're lighter skin. We have to be aware of what our light skin does to a room of darker skinned people. We are reminders of colonialism, rape, slavery, things like that.
And I heard you say that, and to a certain extent, and I understand that. I think for lighter hued people to not understand that there is a certain level of privilege, I think it's ignorant. But I also think that for darker hued people to not acknowledge that there is great difficulty in being born. Period.
Yeah, it's not our fault. Like we just came out this way. Like if I had to press the button, I'm pressing the black button all day. Like all day long.
Also though, why? For me, it's why does it have to be like that? For me, because I live at this point of two Black people that should just fuck with each other, but at the same point in time, half of myself sold myself out. Yes. And that's a heavy understanding. That half of myself believed in myself, right? Mm-hmm. And got put on a boat. Mm-hmm. Okay? And that's fucked up. Now, if either point of myself was being held by gunpoint to lead to that situation, I guess I get it. But no, sometimes as I look through history, I see the bitch in me all the time. I'm like, yes, motherfucker, I was not running with Nat. I fuck you mean. But I also did not tell on him. Okay. Yeah. I ain't tell on him. But also I was in my bed. Okay. And I was
I see
fuck out of here. I was up to pick cotton. The fuck? The fuck are you talking about?
Just trying to get
the fuck are you saying?
I mean, you gotta feel that way about some of our ancestry.
And it was like that, but also like I'm doing a different type of plot because I can't be in servitude to you anymore. Mm-hmm. I think that the most difficult thing about being around Chicago, quote unquote, Blackness or Midwestern Blackness at the time, and even certain aspects. I then attended Howard for undergrad in DC. Mm-hmm. The difference is that I grew up in a place that it was hard to find people who were excited about being Black.
Yeah.
And not in a generic way, not in like, oh, we could dance. You know what I'm saying? Like, not like in that way because I wanted to dance and I wanted, I wanted to be the bitch on the Just For Me box for sure. But at the same point in time, there was one John my like freshman year or sophomore year, and she was like my Spanish tutor. I don't know, whatever. Or she was somebody's Spanish tutor, and she was this black chick, and she cut off all her hair. And I remember, and that was progressive as fuck in like '06. In '07, that was crazy. And she looked amazing. And I remember that planted the seed. And like I had a relaxer in my hair for probably all 4 years of being in high school. And that was because I felt like I needed to. I mean, I remember the day that I got my
the culture
relaxer.
was telling you to.
Right. I remember, actually, it was 8th grade, because I remember I used to have cornrows all the time with little beads on that John. And these are all things that are just helping me to assimilate, in my perspective, into just not being an awkward teen, into just being down. I'm not even thinking about it as I'm trying to be black. Right, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not even what I'm trying to go to class. Like, I need to go to class. I think it's fucked up that everybody associates blackness with not like liking to learn. And what's unfortunate is that I'm being looked at as like a different type of black person. Yeah. By my peers and
I was gonna ask about that.
By my peers and my teachers, and that is frustrating, and that puts kids and people in really difficult spots. One of my friends is a teacher right now, and we were talking and reminiscing and shit, and she was like, yeah, damn, I do that with one of my kids. And basically I was telling her, like, they used to just like make me take care of another kid, and I hated that. Because like I wanted to learn, or I wanted to ask more questions, and you're over here like, go talk to Anthony, he's disobedient. The fuck? Okay,
that's weird.
Like, that's fucked up. But you're pacifying one black on another black because we're all black, and like it's blah blah. And like part of that
goes back to the African American thing that is so frustrating to me. And I've been told that my mixedness steps me outside of this, but I grew up around Africans and Black Americans, like I grew up where the Africans, this was before African American was the term. Up until then we were black. And in 1992, we became African American. I was a freshman in high school, and that shit was like, what the fuck?
And in 1992,
that's exactly what happened. In 1992, Ebonics became a thing, and I was like, fuck you for calling me Ebonics, number one. And number two, I had a best friend at the time who flipped that year. She went from being black to being African, and when she became African, I was no longer black enough for her, and so our friendship ended. And that was a huge thing to me. Like, talk about fucking with a mixed kid trying to be black enough, your best friend for the last couple of years turns on you and says like, sorry, you're not black enough to be with my friend anymore. And so she went like the African path. And she wasn't like, she was the same as me. We were descendants of African slaves, but we don't not know where we're from. She was the same as me. And that was her journey. She needed to go that way. For me, I was just trying to be black all the time. Like, I'm a mixed girl in the hood. I'm just trying to be black all the time. And being told you're not black enough to be my friend anymore. And then now we're suddenly African American. I'm like, I can't claim African. Like, I don't know where my Africans come from. Like, all I know is that we're here. And what I knew at the time was that some of my family came from Missouri and some of them came from Louisiana. And that's what I knew. Like, I knew that we came off of plantations. That's as far back as I can go. And to me, that said I was black. Now I know that I'm from Gabon. So that's what I know now. But I know that now at 40, I learned that. Not at 19, not at 14 or 15. So I'm sitting there trying to maneuver my adulthood, trying to say, I'm African American? No, I don't have a connection to that. And it takes away from someone who actually does have African heritage and grew up here. Like, you would be African American to me.
Yeah, there's no word for us. There's no word. Yes, I get what you're saying. But then for me, I take it as just that they're all stupid labels. Get it? I agree with it. I mean, it's the most technically right term, I suppose, but then it's also like not, because there's been so much disenfranchisement.
Yeah.
So
what sucks too is that, like, I also don't like to say I'm Asian, even though I do like my little Asian don't raisin thing. I like to say I'm Japanese because one, my grandmother came from Japan and I grew up with her and I know her as Japanese. And to be fair, Japanese do have a superiority complex, and we think we're better than all Asians. And so she's like, we're Japanese and they're Asian, and that's the mentality I grew up with. So when I see other Asians, I'm like, hey, other Asians, but when I'm at home,
and
we're
literally
Japanese.
that is what has happened with the two cultures that I am comprised of.
Right.
Literally, Nigerians think they're like the best African in Africa. They're like, yes, the South Africans, we get it.
Seriously, cute. I've never met a Nigerian that wasn't royalty.
Right. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, I guess. Like, you know what I'm saying? What do I do with that? I'm broke now.
I know, you're like, I appreciate that we're from kings and queens, but motherfucker, I got no money.
That's what I'm really trying to say. So it's like, so cool. But like, right, you're just, that crown is invisible. You know what I'm saying? You fucking just keep that shit. You do the fucking job, you do whatever the job is, and you just keep it. And so then you have the Jamaicans who are infamous for like having 10, 11 jobs, for just overworking, for just brown nosing. My nose is already brown, and like type shit. And it's like, oh my God, like fuck you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just trying to do well. You know what I'm just saying?
Oh no.
I mean, there's that idea of like, so you're goody two shoes and like blah blah and like.
But that's such colonialism, and I don't even think we realize all the areas in which colonialism fucked us up.
When I just sat there and I was like, okay, cool. So my nigga, I can't fucking remember his name. Shit. The Wabash. Nah, whatever his name is. The nigga who, the black man who was in charge of like mad aspects of the construction and development and design of Chicago. And then you have like, and that's like supposed to be part of my spirit, right? If I was born in that specific area. And then I have this idea that I am royalty, but just living in this like living in some type of a superhero's humble man's cloak. Like
if we're royalty, why did we come here?
And it's like, cool, it's fine, it's whatever. And then you have this other idea that like, we're not the best, but we're the best, like and it's like, it gives you so much pride for me, but it also, and when I say that, it's like, so am I supposed to be mad at myself? You know what I'm saying? Like, am I supposed to hate myself? Am I supposed to, like, if I walk out into a space, and I, even going to HBCU, you have this moment where, even if when I try to be a part of the Nigerian Association and the Caribbean Association, mugs are really looking at me like, you're not enough of either, And it was like, I came here so that I could like really hit all the points, because we all at the same, right? Like, we all black, right? So we got that down, right? But you trying to tell me like, I don't know enough of the language right now. I can't cook a meal right now in Nigerian culture. You know what I'm saying? And, or like, whatever that moment, or I'm not pretty enough. A lot of it is with aesthetic, because like, even just growing up in it, there's a heavy idea of colorism. It was different and beautiful for both of my parents to decide to find brown people culturally. They come from, I mean, for my mom, not so much. Like, her man could have been as dark as anything, probably.
So what is it about the aesthetics for, I guess? Oh, yeah.
So like in Western, it's like Nigerian, but I mean, also in Jamaica, it's like it's places that are afflicted by dark skin. And I say afflicted because they feel like it's an affliction. But again, a lot of
colonialism.
These bleach creams and bleach soaps and they're in Nigeria, they do this thing where they like tattoo the bottom lip pink. Because apparently you can like get more jobs that way. Like, people are feeling like that's necessary for success.
Are you serious? I never heard that one. I've heard the bleaching stuff, but I did not hear that one.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple of docs on that pink lip situation.
Really? Oh my goodness.
I never feel like hair 100%. unless you're hurting yourself. Innovation in hair isn't a problem. I think that's something that we do.
Yeah.
As humans, I think we just alter various things on our bodies, but the want and the need to do it to promote success is what's unfair.
Especially because success looks like white.
Yeah, like when you think that, okay, that's what is needed. So from my mom's perspective, seeing all different shades of people being successful, I think but also knowing that there was like a colorism aspect to it, because like she definitely, when I was young, I heard if you're light, you're right. If you're brown, stick around, and if you're black, go back. And
No.
that definitely set in my mind.
That didn't make it to Long Beach.
Yeah, man.
That's rough.
And so she knew that she was somewhere in between black and brown, but more so brown. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was of a darker hue, and I think she was happy that she lived in the environment she did, and she felt like I had certain opportunities. But I'm fat. You know what I'm saying? I'm a fat person, and I've been a fat person my entire life. And so when you add fatness to dark skinness, you know,
I see.
niggas have a lot to say to you about you.
What about your siblings? How, in terms of shades, were you all similar or were you different?
For the most part, but I think I used to feel like I was the darkest, but now I'm not really sure. But it's different. So I have an older brother and an older sister. So my older sister was also a plus size, darker skinned girl. But she was very feminine. And my sister was kind of an artist, wallflower worker, you know, worked with the kids and stuff, shit like that. But they were, so, you know, he always had white bitches on his dick, you know what I'm saying? Like, long story short. Long story short, and I think there were a couple of times where I made fun of it. He was always around white people, and my sister was always more so around black people. And so, again, that was a down the middle situation.
I see.
And so when I grew up, being the third, you observe, and what I observed is I didn't want to be too hard on either side. So I had all friends. I had Asian, Latino, black, white. It didn't matter. We're finding similarity. We're getting down. I don't know. That just taught me, that kind of brought the human race idea to perspective. Like when we talk about this whole idea, like Pangea and like Adam and Eve, or what, there was an explosion, whatever the fuck you want to do. Like wherever you want to start it from. I don't even fucking care, bro. You piss, you shit, you eat, right? And like why would like your hair texture or your skin color then dictate that you're smarter or dumber than me? You know what usually dictates that is like whether or not we started singing the ABCs when you were in the womb or not. Like shit like that helps. But then there's predisposition to trauma. I don't know what that shit's called again, but
generational trauma.
Generational trauma, and I think those are things, if anything, affect us most. And then there aren't, because of institutionalized racism and the way people like my mother and father were probably treated when they first got to this country. And I say that to say that they were probably given shit jobs, right?
Right.
But because they aren't from here, quote unquote, just like you take anybody else who's a foreigner, quote unquote, in a situation, you decide to be like, oh, no, you're not from here. I'm sorry, man. You don't know any better. You're not a nigga. You know what I'm saying? And then so there becomes that difference.
That separates them from the Black Americans.
And it's not something that they want, per se. But if they're, or, you know, if you're assuming, hey, this isn't as bad as I thought it was because I don't have the same relationship in history with this group of people. And what you realize, though, is that that's when white people usually are able to have sympathy for racial injustices, is when it's not them. Like if
like you're a different kind of black, so it's easier to
I mean, that's what
empathetic.
happened with media in the 60s. It was like, oh, the Southerners. Look at how they're treating the Southern Negroes. But y'all were treating white, black Negroes in the North some type of way as well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
The North wasn't absolved of racism because...
You know what I'm saying? Like
Well, there's also this weird thing of like religious groups, white religious groups showing active racism against Black Americans and yet having these charities in Africa. Right. And you're just like, why are you raising money for these children across a continent where you have no experience of them? And there's literal Black children in front of you and you're viewing them as grown-ass adults to attack with dogs and water hoses and, you know.
Yeah, it's literally ridiculous. Taking mission trips to try and like save their lives. Right. You know what I'm saying?
And how fucking dare you? Like, listen, religious people, do not go to other people's countries.
I mean, it's funnier when it's other niggas. Like, you don't know how many churches I went to. I mean, so I lived in D.C., then I went to Atlanta, and then I came up to New York, and, you know, I was out in L.A. for a little bit. And, but while I was in Atlanta, that was my first experience with the Bible Belt. So I loved Baptist church because for me, I feel the anointing personally through music. I feel very blessed with certain sounds. It is soothing
music
to me.
In Black church is the only thing I do actually miss. Well, not the only thing I miss, but I was an atheist raised in the church, and the music was the thing that connected.
It was banging, wasn't it?
It's the best music. I don't care what anybody says. It's the best music.
Got that drum and that bass going. Okay.
It's the best
music.
I
came up in that's the church I came up in. And so I hated that shit. I was like, so even I just felt like I was a different type of Black, and you need to stop addressing us all as the same. But then you also need to stop assuming that because they're this type of Black and they were raised in this part of Chicago or this type of blah, 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 that they shouldn't be in this advanced reading class. Or if they are, then they're special and gifted. And like, if I'm here, it's like, oh, what, you have two parents in your home? No, nigga, actually, I don't. You know what I'm saying? Oh, but you're Jamaican. Okay, I get it. No, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like those moments like, no, yeah, you get what? That I come home every day and my mom is like, you know, doesn't say shit to me and like it's like, oh, well, you're still gonna be a failure, and it's like, great, you know, like what part of that do you get? And like, I think that for me, my whole strive has been to just be like, yo, I'm not trying to say we all have the same things to say. I'm just trying to say that all the things we have to say are important. Yeah. And that you need to find some chill, and that we need to acknowledge our hypocrisies. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, y'all. Unfortunately, at this spot, it cuts off again. It's been cutting off for a big part of this, as you might have been aware of, and by the time we got back on recording and stuff like that, we totally lost our flow, and there's a huge gap in this conversation from where we were leaving off here. So it being that it's close to an hour already, I'm going to fast forward on to the very end of our conversation where we start to wrap up.
All right, so
that's cool.
Where we were wrapping up, we were kind of at the spot where you were talking about like the men in your family tend to outside.
So that idea, right? Right. I remember being at Thanksgiving and motherfuckers talking about dark meat and white meat, and I didn't understand what motherfuckers were talking about.
Oh, that was common in my mixed family too.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But straight up,
Mixed black
are
people.
good. Y'all are stupid. Like, cut me both pieces now.
Listen to this. Listen to this uncomfortable story.
Yes.
My aunt, who it was from the half black, half white side, she always she usually ended up with white or non-black men after her marriage because it was abusive and the whole thing.
Yeah, it was like, no, I'm not doing that shit.
So
again.
she ended up with this white dude named Tom, and Tom told us that we could call him Uncle, and I was like, Tom, you don't understand. You are about to join a black family. We are not calling you Uncle Tom. You will be Tom forever. But at Thanksgiving one time, she had asked him, did he want white or dark meat? And he did the grossest white thing ever. He said, well, I love my dark meat. And then he kissed her on the face, like her cheek, and then hugged her and then said, but I'll have white meat. And I was 12 and grossed out, and I cannot shake that memory because I'm 42 now, and
So
every time I see
like
a turkey,
that.
I think of that story.
And I love turkey, man. I don't know. That is a traumatic story, man.
It's so gross, and I
anything to
still
hold me
think
back.
of that. It was a 30-year-old trauma that I can trace back to Thanksgiving
30-year-old.
when I was 12 years old. But yes.
No, yeah. So
Light meat.
I don't think anything. I mean, one time I'm pretty sure I walked downstairs and like my uncles were watching a porn and drinking beers. But wasn't too super disgusted by that. In life, I just kind of wonder why men can do that. I just don't get it.
Like watch porn
and it's
together.
not like it's not like I really want to sit around with my bitches and be like, girl, let's watch
Let's some porn together, right?
it is like over Bin Laden. Like, I don't fucking know what the thing is, but I wouldn't do it. Like, that's just fucking weird. Yeah, man. So, shit. I don't even know what to start with
we
that.
covered a lot of stuff, so.
No. But yeah, I just want to also, I feel like there was like a point that I was getting to.
We were talking about how kind of like subconsciously you don't know what you're picking up by seeing
with
the
that
men in your life.
situation. So, copy. I'm sorry. So yeah, so having uncles that chose women who were not of my same race, that made me have certain definitely internalized issues. But then it also, like, as I got to know these women, it made it not about the race.
I
you
see.
know,
and that goes back to your theme of kind of being more of a human race oriented type of
yeah,
person.
and there are issues that we need to I think the issues that we need to deal with are more of a masculine feminine energy issue. I think they're more of a submissive dominant issue.
Okay.
I think I'm not going to sit here and be like, what? The whites have it so bad. No, I think, it's funny to me when white guys are like, especially in comedy spaces, there are a lot of jokes right now where they're like, oh, it's so hard being a white guy.
Yeah.
And I get it, though. You know what I'm saying? It's super hard being in the middle of the circle. You know what I'm saying? But, like, get into it. It's your spot now.
That's the whole idea of like when oppression, it feels like oppression when you don't have easy access to what you always have easy access to.
And it's not even like you don't. Like, you're still getting it.
Right, yeah, you totally
like,
can.
Things aren't even changing like that. It's not like all of a sudden I'm the most employed motherfucker out here.
Right.
Like, I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Every time they're like, black women are on the rise of employment. Yeah, okay, so now there are two of us in a room.
You know what I'm saying?
Like, that's really what's happened. That's not I think
equality.
there are different fears, you know?
I think, like, even like RBG, she says, like, until there are 9, right? Like, until there are 9, we're not seeing equality. But that's a flip that's the opposite. That's the flip of what we have. Like, until they're, I don't know what the thing is.
It's like 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 is, and it's not like nobody's going to really do that. And, or are we? I think how much work do you want to do how much work do you want to do, not you, but like the average black person, because there are a lot of people who have this feeling. How much work do you want to do to not say that white people smell like wet dog when they get wet? Real shit. Because I've heard,
I've heard that a bunch
I lived
too.
around white people my entire life. Those bitches smell like 9 times out of 10 Suave. Bitches smelled like Suave my entire fucking life.
It's our
Suave,
effort to try to
Tresemme.
feel like we have something that we can do too.
And I get that, and that's cool. But like, I went to a school where niggas were relentless. No, those niggas smell like fucking wet dog. I swear to God, one time I was outside, this white boy, he came in, he was soaking wet. Wow, what's that smell? That's like, really? Do y'all have, like, really? I'm not gonna sit here and do that. Okay, cool. So then on top of that, how much time, to the other side of this situation, are you gonna really sit there and say that you don't make based on
it like blinked out again for a second. I was like, no, you gotta be kidding me. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was like, how many times do you think that you have made some weird assessment based on a Black person or a person of color's visual aesthetic and correlated it to their talent?
Right.
They're just like sheer talent. Like, you can sing, can't you? Oh, you probably can cook.
It's such a weird kind of thing
you
because
play basketball, don't you?
It kind of feels like a compliment, and this is the thing that a lot of white people don't understand when they have when they do a microaggression, or I don't even love the word microaggression, but you know what I'm saying. Like, they're just like, but it was a compliment, and I'm like, yes, but it was a racial specific compliment that may not
have a good
qualify to this person.
What does that mean? Your food probably tastes exactly like the box. Would that be a compliment for you?
That's a good one, though. I'm sorry. Like, that one's a good one.
That should be lit, though. Like, when stuff tastes exactly like Stouffer's tastes exactly like whatever generic. I don't know how some white people are able to put the right amount of... It's not even bland because it got the flavor. It's got the generic flavor. It's got the flavor that it should have. It's like, how you get Jell-O and all Jell-O tastes the same. It's not like, oh, this is spicy Jell-O. You just like the strawberry. Like, I don't know how all white people can do that. They can, and it's amazing. So you should pat yourself on the back for knowing exactly how much seasoning of everything to put in. Because you do season your food. I think that's also a fucked up misconception. I've eaten many a white plate and enjoyed it. This is yummy.
And the white that's connected to me, they don't season, and it is one of those things where, like, my father-in-law, even like if you open seasoning in the same room as the food he is eating, he can taste your seasoning even though it never touched his food. It's just a counterpoint. I'm not saying all white people. I'm saying the specific white people.
But when are we going to get to the point where we're able to judge each other individually? You know what I'm saying? But also not have individual hate. Like, make a judgment, right? Assessment. You know what I'm saying? But not like out of anger and hostility. Because like, there's a show you should check out. It's called Circle, or The Circle. You seen that?
I have heard of this. I have not seen it.
It's crazy, girl. You need to watch it. So basically it's about how like people be judging you off your profile picture. So everybody's judged off their first initial pick that they choose, right? And it's like 8 people and everybody's given an apartment. And so they have to live in that apartment all day, all night, and they have to communicate with each other via social media and that one image. And you just have this moment where you realize that everybody does want to be loved. And we don't have to kick people out, but we do. And the criteria which we create to kick people out is just based upon fears about what we think, really honestly, their aesthetic can bring them, or like how it can protect them. How I say who I am changes how people approach me. You know what I'm saying? If I say, I've picked and chosen environments to say that I am Black in versus saying that I'm Nigerian versus saying that I'm Jamaican in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's the same of when I say if I'm mixed or if I say I'm mixed Black.
I really don't ever say that I'm mixed unless somebody is like, really, if I feel like they can take the response.
Right. Like I remember
I'm
when
mixed
you
black.
said that you were Nigerian and Jamaican. I was like, oh, you're mixed. You're a different kind of mixed black than me being mixed black.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it was the
Yeah.
first thing. Like I led with it because my whole world.
But for you to acknowledge that is what was dope. And I was like, oh, okay, so you get it. All right, cool. Like, because like I think a lot of people don't, because like even when you have a situation where it's like you have just Filipino people or like
who are super
or
mixed
southern,
too.
yeah. Oh my God, just say Southeastern Asian people who are literally like the Spanish was in that bitch, the French was in that bitch, like everybody was in that bitch.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. But
it's funny because like for me, I think what I realized in doing this show, especially in the first few months, was that I didn't understand. I don't know how I didn't have this experience because I'm a mixed black person. So I definitely should have understood this. Is that when you say mixed, regardless of race of the monoracial person you say it to, they automatically assume black and white.
yes.
And so like in my case, people would be like, are you though? Because they see my ambiguously Asian Latinx appearance and they're like, I don't, you're not coding as black and white to me. So I'm confused. And then I say, well, I'm triracial. I'm black, I'm Japanese, I'm white, whatever. And then, and they're like, oh, okay. But until one person actually asked me, are you allowed to say that you're mixed then? And I was like, I'm literally telling you I'm the mix of 3 different ethnic groups. How could that not be? And then I started to realize like, as I got older,
black and white here.
Yeah, that's what it means, and I didn't get that. For me, what it has always meant is not only that I'm mixed race, but I am mixed culture, and I don't have a race. Like you have a race, you are black, whatever that means. Ethnically, you are Nigerian and you're Jamaican, but when someone looks at you, you are black. Wherever you step on the world, you're going to be some kind of black. In my case, there's no race you can assign to me. You can only say you've got to be some kind of mix because, or you're Dominican. I'm mostly Dominican. But again, that's like an ethnic group, right?
Like, depending on where you're at.
You look the most like this ethnic group I can identify. So that is what I think it's that too.
And then I think there's the acknowledging, like, even as a black person that like, if I did this fucking 23andMe and Ancestry.com shit, and they're like, woo, you 11% European. Cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like goes to show, like, okay, you're affirming more that this race shit is annoying.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're doing for me.
And you're not going to
like,
claim
unless I can
European.
put that 11% on my, you know what I'm saying?
On your resume
how many
or
times,
something like that,
how many times do I fucking have to fill out paperwork for, you know, whatever show or movie, and they have to ask me what my gender is, and then now that we've decided that that's testy, that's too touchy.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer that. But are you, always gets me, are you white, Caucasian, black, African American, non-Hispanic, all right, Hispanic,
non-white.
Yeah, Hispanic, non-white. What? And then you got Pacific, Eastern, like Asian. You got 3 different types of Asians. You got 3 different types of Latinos, but you still only have me as black /
African American.
And then disrespectfully, honestly, because you know you really secretly give a fuck, but apparently you don't on this application. You only have white / Caucasian.
Yeah.
But anybody who lives in an environment with more than one type of white person knows motherfuckers care.
Yeah, they do. Boston cares.
Fucking Chicago cares. If you don't think the shooting, all the shit that's happening has something to do with how those motherfuckers don't fuck with each other, yes.
I actually heard the term recently, ethnic white people, and I burst out laughing because that meant non-Anglo white.
Yeah.
And I just died at that idea. Like,
I think I probably just would say foreign.
It's so important to some people that an Anglo or an Aryan appearance is the dominant white, that they will refer to other white people who just might be traditionally a little bit different. Like, say, a Romanian would be an ethnic white person. or an Armenian versus like regular Russian or whatever the fuck.
But
like,
also, they don't have some of those people don't have certain cultural saturations.
Yeah.
Like, I met mad Turkish people, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's a little, and this is why I probably won't marry interracially, but I always think that there's just a fine line between like infatuation, being chill, and then like fetishization.
Sure.
And like, I met mad people, you know, of that background who are like, no, like, black people are great where we're from. We just call them chocolate. Like, but you know they're humans, right?
God damn it.
And you like,
why are we always food or animals?
We like, but you know that they're just like you, but they just have, yeah. But you know, for her, or that, you know, those people, they're like these moments where they're just trying to connect with me, and they're just trying to be like,
yeah,
hey, like, I know we love you, like, it's cool. And it's like, yeah, but I want you to love me just like you love your sister. Yeah. But like, not like you love your dad, you know what I'm saying? Like, not like a mascot.
I don't want to be your mascot. This is my black best friend, my black sister. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But we have talked for a very long time.
I know this has been
awesome, and I might chop it up into a couple different episodes because
you might want to do that.
We did have some audio trouble and things like that, but this has been so dope, and I think we need to talk a bunch of times more.
I would love to.
Before we go, there is a question that I do enjoy asking all my people, because sometimes we do talk about trauma, and sometimes, you know, sometimes mixedness is a rough topic. So I like to end on a positive note and ask, what is it that you love most about being mixed?
Oh, I think, man, I love it because, like, I love being able to say that I'm two types of black. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I think that there's this perception growing up that, like, it was only cool to be mixed if your hair came out long.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And, like,
got that good hair, girl.
And I feel like I love it because also I want to be influential in this world, and I want to give something in this world that they can keep and grow from. I feel like both sides of me, both of the cultures that I'm from, and then the place where I was raised, it's full. It's like ample of people who've done that or who have set some type of foundation for more people to do it. You know, like as I talk about hip hop, or even right now when we talk about this Miss Universe, Miss World, Miss blah, blah, blah pageant. Yeah. And it was like to see Nigeria root for Jamaica, that was really profound for me. Because I think a lot of aspects of myself have always been out.
Right.
Like, I feel like I cheer for myself in a way, but like I have to pick a side, and I can't like really be happy in either.
Right.
And so it was really nice to kind of see that moment come to fruition. But at the same point in time, how you gonna give me my crown? I've been had that. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, that's like, I'm a salty individual. I'm sorry, not sorry. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are getting geeked. Oh, the Miss US teen and everybody's black. Okay. Sometimes people starve you out so that you can fiend for trash.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You starved me out of these competitions so you could confirm the fact that I'm beautiful.
Yeah.
That I am of sound mind and body, that I love community service in my community. Literally, we are what keeps every community arise. Is literally a woman, okay? And then add to that a woman of color.
Yeah.
Because, like, what's unfortunate, I think what had the election, I know I'm going on a tangent, go so left, is that story. And when you're not aware of your origin story, if you don't know, like, why the white bitches was marching and why they were really like out here like, yeah, everybody needs to vote. If you don't understand, then you don't value what you do when you have that vote. Then you do exactly what your husband wanted you to do. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, no, as much as I don't like Susan B. Anthony and you know, they were out here thinking a little bit, just a little bit. And even if it was like, something that, we had to suck up and be like, hey, yeah, everybody needs the right to vote so that our Black men could have the opportunity to vote, so that eventually we could have an opportunity to vote by making that decision with them, then, then we understand the strength in voting, and we understand the strength in communication, like love and communication. When you can communicate with love, like, I think you could get a lot of things made, whether it's art. And I think that's what makes me most excited about being mixed, is that when, even when it's bad, like, even when I'm like, ultimately, like, my parents should not have found each other.
I know. I think a lot of us mixed folks think this way.
Yeah, I'm like, how the fuck?
How did this happen?
Wrong with you? And then I didn't even realize that it had affected me romantically so much until I got older, and I was like, I am cynical about every little thing. I'm like, and even when I think about it, I'm like, I'm really happy that it happened, because I know that there's a lot I want to hone in craft-wise. There is a lot I want to give to this world, and I don't know if I would have been able to do it if in the way that I want to, or in such a globalizing, I don't know, or encompassing way, if I wasn't mixed with these two specific groups of people.
Things, right. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to me for so long, even through our audio troubles that we were having. I really do appreciate it. And why don't you hype yourself? Tell everybody how they can find you.
Oh my God.
All the stuff that you do. Talk about it.
Okay, I'll talk a little bit about it. Okay. 2020 is a writing heavy year for me. Good. I do stand-up comedy. I've worked in production for the past 6 years or so, working in everything from production assistant to coordinator to payroll clerk. And I kind of hate it a little bit, but I did it on purpose. I did it because I really do something different with the images that I produce or direct or write for you guys and for this world. And so if you'd like to follow me in this journey or contact me, you can reach me on Instagram or via email. And Instagram, I am at something dope, and that's SUM. THIN.
I follow, so I can jump in on that one.
It's like it's SUMTH. Oh yeah, you're right. SUMTHIN underscore DOPE. And that came about because I started Instagram pretty early, and I couldn't think of a name, so I was like, I'm just going to do something dope.
You can change it, and it'll let you change it.
Yeah, but it's like now it works. And then I was also like something, like, like I'm something, like I'm not really totally thin. I don't know. It was ridiculous. So that is my Instagram. You can reach me there. And then my email is Rachel Roe at gmail.com. The Rachel Roe at gmail.com. And so it's TheRachel ROE at gmail.com. And then my Twitter, I don't know what that is right now, but second I do know what it is, you'll know. Okay. I tweet funny things sometimes. It's probably my Twitter is Rerun's niece. We're gonna go with that.
All right.
So Rerun's niece from What's Happening. She never made her debut on that show because I wasn't born yet. But I'm making my debut soon.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so guys, please reach out. I love talking to people, conversations, open to all that good stuff. More nudes in 2020, right?
More nudes. Consensual nudes, please, everybody. Consensual nudes.
Consensual nudes. Oh my God, you don't know how much I wanted to share with you.
Militantly Mixed is a ManeHustle media podcast, produced and hosted by me, Charmaine Fury. Music is by David Bogan the One. You can follow us on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Militantly Mixed. If you'd like to become a sponsor of Militantly Mixed, please go to patreon.com/militantlymixed for monthly sponsorship or paypal.me/militantlymixed for a one-time only donation. And if you like what you hear on Militantly Mixed, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to be your mixed-ass self. ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.